英語聞き流し10分間、名作リスニング、英語テキストと MP3 ダウンロード、その他の物語は、ホームページよりご利用いただけます。88thpp.com 88thpp.com
Chapter 5 The Kingdom of the Future. Tildel and Mydel woke up next morning, feeling very gay. With childish carelessness, they had forgotten their disappointment. Tildel was very proud of the compliments which Light had paid him. She seemed as happy as though he had brought the blue bird with him. She said, with a smile, as she stroked the lad's dark curls, "I am quite satisfied. You are such a good, brave boy that you will soon find what you are looking for." Tildel did not understand the deep meaning of her words, but, for all that, he was very glad to hear them. And, besides, Light had promised him that today he would have nothing to fear in their new expedition. On the contrary, he would meet millions and millions of little children who would show him the most wonderful toys of which no one on earth had the least idea. She also told him that he and his little sister would travel alone with her this time and that all the others would take a rest while they were gone. That is why, at the moment when our chapter opens, they had all met in the underground vaults of the temple. Light thought it as well to lock up the elements and things. She knew that, if they were left to do as they pleased, they might escape and get into mischief. It was not so very cruel of her, because the vaults of her temple are even lighter and lovelier than the upper floors of human houses, but you cannot get out without her leave. She alone has the power of widening, with a stroke of her wand, a little cleft in an emerald wall at the end of the passage, through which you go down a few crystal steps till you come to a sort of cave, all green and transparent like a forest when the sunlight sweeps through its branches. Usually, this grey hall was quite empty, but now it had sofas in it and a gold table laid with fruits and cakes and creams and delicious wines, which Light's servants had just finished setting out. Light's servants were very odd. They always made the children laugh. With their long white satin dresses and their little black caps with a flame at the top, they looked like lighted candles. Their mistress sent them away and then told the animals and things to be very good and asked them if they would like some books and games to play with. They answered, with a laugh, that nothing amused them more than eating and sleeping and that they were very glad to stay where they were. Light's servants were very odd. Tylo, of course, did not share this view. His heart spoke louder than his greed or his laziness, and his great dark eyes turned in entreaty on Tildel, who would have been only too pleased to take his faithful companion with him, if Light had not absolutely forbidden it. "I can't help it," said the boy, giving him a kiss. "It seems that dogs are not admitted where we are going." Suddenly, Tylo sprang up with delight. A great idea had struck him. He had not left his real, doggy life long enough to forget any part of it, especially his troubles. Which was the greatest of these? Was it not the chain? What melancholy hours Tylo had spent fastened to an iron ring. And what humiliation he endured when the woodcutter used to take him to the village and, with unspeakable silliness, keep him on the lead in front of everybody, thus depriving him of the pleasure of greeting his friends and sniffing the smells provided for his benefit at every street corner and in every gutter. "Well," he said to himself, "I shall have to submit to that humiliating torture once again, to go with my little god." Faithful to his traditions, he had, in spite of his fine clothes, kept his dog collar, but not his lead. What was to be done? He was once more in despair, when he saw Water lying on a sofa and playing, in an absent-minded sort of way, with her long strings of coral. He ran up to her as prettily as he could and, after paying her a heap of compliments, begged her to lend him her biggest necklace. She was in a good temper and not only did what he asked, but was kind enough to fasten the end of the coral string to his collar. Tylo gaily went up to his master, handed him this necklace chain and, kneeling at his feet, said, "Take me with you like this, my little god." Men never say a word to a poor dog when he is on his chain. "Alas, even like this, you cannot come," said Light, who was much touched by this act of self-sacrifice, and, to cheer him up, she told him that fate would soon provide a trial for the children in which his assistance would be of great use. As she spoke these words, she touched the emerald wall, which opened to let her pass through with the children. Her chariot was waiting outside the entrance to the temple. It was a lovely shell of jade, inlaid with gold. They all three took their seats, and the two great white birds harnessed to it at once flew off through the clouds. The chariot traveled very fast, and they were not long on the road, much to the regret of the children, who were enjoying themselves and laughing like anything, but other and even more beautiful surprises awaited them. The clouds vanished around them, and, suddenly, they found themselves in a dazzling azure palace. Here, all was blue: the light, the flagstones, the columns, the vaults, everything, down to the smallest objects, was of an intense and fairy-like blue. There was no seeing the end of the palace, the eyes were lost in the infinite sapphire vistas. "How lovely it all is," said Tildal, who could not get over his astonishment. "Goodness me, how lovely! Where are we?" "We are in the kingdom of the future," said Light, "in the midst of the children who are not yet born. As the diamond allows us to see clearly in this region which is hidden from men, we shall perhaps find the blue bird here. Look! Look at the children running up." From every side came bands of little children dressed from head to foot in blue. They had beautiful dark or golden hair and they were all exquisitely pretty. They shouted gleefully, "Live children! Come and look at the little live children." "Why do they call us the little live children?" asked Tildal, of Light. "It is because they themselves are not alive yet. They are awaiting the hour of their birth, for it is from here that all the children come who are born upon our earth. When the fathers and mothers want children, the great doors which you see over there, at the back, are opened, and the little ones go down." "What a lot there are! What a lot there are!" cried Tildal. "There are many more," said Light. "No one could count them. But go a little further, you will see other things." Tildal did as he was told and elbowed his way through, but it was difficult for him to move because a crowd of blue children pressed all around them. At last, by mounting on a step, our little friend was able to look over the throng of inquisitive heads and see what was happening in every part of the hall. It was most extraordinary. Tildal had never dreamed of anything like it. He danced with joy, and Myrtle, who was hanging on to him and standing on tiptoe so that she might see too, clapped her little hands and gave loud cries of wonder. All around were millions of children in blue, some playing, others walking about, others talking or thinking. Many were asleep, many also were at work, and their instruments, their tools, the machines which they were building, the plants, the flowers and the fruits which they were growing or gathering were of the same bright and heavenly blue as the general appearance of the palace. Among the children moved tall persons also dressed in blue. They were very beautiful and looked just like angels. They came up to Light and smiled and gently pushed aside the blue children, who went back quietly to what they were doing, though still watching our friends with astonished eyes. One of them, however, remained standing close to Tildal. He was quite small. From under his long sky-blue silk dress peeped two little pink and dimpled bare feet. His eyes stared in curiosity at the little live boy, and he went up to him as though in spite of himself. "May I talk to him?" asked Tildal, who felt half glad and half frightened. "Certainly," said Light. "You must make friends. I will leave you alone, you will be more at ease by yourselves." So saying, she went away and left the two children face to face, shyly smiling. Suddenly, they began to talk. "How do you do?" said Tildal, putting out his hand to the child. But the child did not understand what that meant and stood without moving. "What's that?" continued Tildal, touching the child's blue dress. The child, who was absorbed in what he was looking at, did not answer, but gravely touched Tildal's hat with his finger. "And that?" he lisped. "That? That's my hat," said Tildal. "Have you no hat?" "No, what is it for?" asked the child. "It's to say how do you do with," Tildal answered. "And then for when it's cold." "What does that mean, when it's cold?" asked the child. "When you shiver like this, brrr. Brrr, said Tildal. "And when you go like this with your arms," vigorously beating his arms across his chest. "Is it cold on earth?" asked the child. "Yes, sometimes, in winter, when there is no fire." "Why is there no fire?" "Because it's expensive, and it costs money to buy wood." The child looked at Tildal again as though he did not understand a word that Tildal was saying, and Tildal in his turn looked amazed. "It's quite clear that he knows nothing of the most everyday things," thought our hero, while the child stared with no small respect at the little live boy who knew everything. Then he asked Tildal what money was. "Why, it's what you pay with," said Tildal, scorning to give any further explanation. "Oh," said the child, seriously. Of course, he did not understand. How could he know, a little boy like that, who lived in a paradise where his least wishes were granted before he had learned to put them into words? How old are you? Asked Tildel, continuing the conversation. I'm going to be born soon, said the child. I shall be born in 12 years. Is it nice to be born? Oh, yes, cried Tildel, without thinking. It's great fun.
英語聞き流し10分間、名作リスニング、英語テキストと MP3 ダウンロード、その他の物語は、ホームページよりご利用いただけます。88thpp.com 88thpp.com